Hi, Uprisers. It is Trisha LaCroix once again with Sacred Uprising Institute, a platform for your life transformation, a one-stop oasis for your continued expansion from beginners to masters to beginners again. And I have Dr. Lisa on today. We're starting a little bit early because we've got some deadlines to do, and she's got kids to pick up, and she's trying to fit this into her schedule. So I am just waiting for her to come on. Bear with me. I need to go ahead and share this on our Sacred Uprising platform. If you're not following us, Sacred Uprising on Facebook, please go and follow us. So give me 1 second. As of tomorrow, I will have our producer and administrative assistant, Courtney Miller, will be doing all this kind of stuff, so I won't have to be doing it anymore. But for right now, for today, I am still doing this. Lisa.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I am, hold on, right? I have to just share this on Sacred Uprising. So I know we want to get started. We titled this the Sacred Altar because I know that we're going to be talking about different things regarding sacred altars of our lives, and I didn't know quite what to call it. And Talon, I see you. I love you to the moon and back, woman. But I didn't know exactly what direction we're going to, because typically I talk to the teachers before, a day or two before our sessions, but Lisa and I have been busy and we didn't get to do it, but I also know her wisdom precedes her and I don't need to really follow up with her. So I'm going to, Lisa, bring it on.
Perfect. Well, so we're talking about everyday sacredness. That's really maybe, yes, everyday sacredness. I'm currently burning some Palo Santo. Speaking of, you got to cleanse some of this energy. But really, what the whole conversation that we're going to have today is about bringing the sacredness into everyday living, which I feel is an incredibly important part of the walk of a spiritual being. I believe wholeheartedly that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Right.
And, it's important to learn how to balance that, where it's like back when I used to be in the church, we used to say people were like so heavenly minded, they were no earthly good.
Right.
And it's really about learning how to walk in that balance where you're fully in your divinity, fully in your humanity, that you have space for both of those experiences, but that you create the sacredness wherever you go.
Right. Right. And the thing is at 0 point, which is the energy of source, it is in the balance of the two. And that's what my guide thought talks about. But there's the darkness and there's the light, and in the middle is where God resides.
Right. That's where the magic happens.
Right.
So everyday sacredness is not necessarily about, walking around with like, holy water or whatever your spiritual practices would require. It's about learning how to make every moment a sacred experience. It's about creating that sense of God within, as above, so below,
right.
All like heaven on earth within the everyday being. So it's about like creating, sorry, I just had notification come up, rituals around sacredness and how to bring that into your existence. So in my particular, like in my own practices, that involves burning sage or Palo Santo pretty much every day, depending on what's going on. It's really great to clear the negative energies. It's about having a consistent meditation practice or introspection, which doesn't necessarily mean like, the sitting with your fingers like this and saying, it's a lot of people that I know meditate walking. It's really about having the capacity and the ability to go within, right, and to connect with source in your everyday mundane experiences. So in my view, I know a lot of people think might sound crazy, but you can cooking can be sacred.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
when it's infused with love. Cleaning your house can be a sacred experience because if you approach it with gratitude, if you're like, I'm so grateful that I have a home and it's beautiful and it's comfortable and I'm taking care of it and I'm cultivating positive energies and bringing in great experiences, that can be a sacred experience.
Right. I go, going in nature is a sacred experience. And I'd like to say that even the footsteps I take is a prayer to the divine. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to. Now there's different meditations that you do for different things, but if you're looking just to create a sacredness around you, you don't have to be on your knees in prayer. You don't have to, like you said, with your, your fingers like this and doing the You just take that mindfulness position and be grateful.
Right. Be in gratitude and be in love, because that's the high vibe experience, right? To grateful for your existence, grateful. It's like meditation. So I'm talking about like the everyday sacredness. It's like even something as simple as like, I like to use like lavender body oil.
Yep.
After I'll take you've seen me do this before in videos where I've talked about this. Taking like a salt bath, Epsom salt bath with some stones in the water, and really creating a sanctuary experience, cleansing that energy, doing that sacred work. And then really I'll take that oil and I'll, rub it on my skin, and I do it as a prayer. It's like really like, thank you, arms, for typing today. Thank you for being strong enough to pick up my children. Thank you for all of these things. And so it's literally like creating this sense of, I don't necessarily want to call it worship because that sounds like super narcissistic, but creating that sense of reverence for your body.
I like that. Right.
Recognize that it's your body that has carried you this far. It's like looking at your stretch marks, if you have them. I have stretch marks because I had giant kids, and it's like recognizing that those stretch marks are an indication of this body having brought forth life, and being grateful for that, and treating it with a sense of reverence, instead of doing what most of us do, which is to critique and to pick apart what our perceived flaws and the things that we don't have. And we can shift that and come from a space of gratitude and love for what our bodies have done for us, that they continue to wake up every day and take us out of our beds and into our lives, and so on and so forth.
But you're talking about that, and it also can go even further. I mean, the way that we treat ourselves with our thoughts. What are we doing in reverence for who we are with our thoughts and what we speak and our actions? What are we doing within our house? We want to put oils on our bodies in reverence, but what are we doing within our house? And what are we burning? What are we putting in our diffusers? What are we putting into the walls by the words that we speak? This can go, and even in our children or our pets or whatever. I mean, there are so many different layers of this on how everyday life is sacred, and what are we leaving on people's altars, and including our own.
Right. Absolutely. And that's where where the mindfulness becomes so important, because sorry, there's like a bunch of Palo Santo smoke.
It's like, is there a ghost?
That's
Casper's there.
It's just purifying the shit out of this space. So yes, it's all of that. It's about, it's especially when we're talking about like the words that we say to ourselves, right? It's like the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves. How are you speaking to yourself? What are the words that you're saying? Do you look in the mirror and see somebody that is flawed and messed up and damaged and wounded and all of those things, which may be the case, right? It's like we all have wounds. We all have wound patterns.
Yes,
we all
right.
have things we have to work through and we have to grow through. But it's one thing to be like, wow, you're so effed up. Like no one can ever love you. That's a totally not a great way. And it's like another space to be like, I recognize that I have some work to do, but I love myself on the path, right where I am on the path to where I'm going. And that's a different energy. That's right. Open, it's expansive, it's loving, it's kind. It's about learning how not to pick yourselves apart all the time. Because it's so easy to do, right? We grow up in this society where it's like constantly put in our faces about how we don't measure up, we're not good enough. There's all these messages that we get. And if you have the misfortune of growing up in a situation, in a family that is dysfunctional or that's unhealthy, then you create that again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You repeat the pattern.
You repeat the pattern, and internalize it, and it becomes your inner dialogue. And so at a certain point, like the Bible says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, but when I became a man, I spoke as a man. And it's at a certain point, you have to make a decision. Like, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to continue living out these childhood patterns, or am I going to say the buck stops here, and I'm going to do whatever is necessary for me to shift my life and to create a new reality? That is an act of self-love. Refusing to put up with your own bullshit is an act of self-love.
Yes, exactly.
It's an act of sacredness.
Yep. And it's also attracting it's also putting out there what you are attracting in your life. So, I mean, how you speak to yourself is the way you're going to be treating others, which is what you're going to be receiving in return. So what do you want to receive in return? Let's start backwards. What do you want to receive in return? Okay, now we need to align how we think, how we speak, how we act, what we put out there, so we can, it's when, again, I said this last week, when you're starting a company, you have a mission statement, what the mission statement is, and everything has to be aligned to what that mission is, everything. Right. So what is your mission? What is that goal? And then align every aspect of your life to that. That's how you call in the one. Again, absolutely, not necessarily the romantic relationship, but what it is that you want, what you're desiring.
Right. And if you're not clear on that, right, if you're not clear on your values, on your mission statement, like, I believe everybody should have a personal mission statement. I believe that there should be your North Star that guides your life and your decisions, everything that you do, and everything ought to be measured against that. So it's like when I get opportunities, for instance, people will say, would you like to participate in this, or would you like to do this, or want to write here, or do this? I always look at it through the lens of, will this get me closer to, is this in alignment with my mission? Yep. Will it get me closer to my mission? Or is it a distraction? Is it something that's taking me off of my path? Because if it doesn't serve my higher mission,
right,
then then it's not in alignment with what I want to do. And that's where too many people don't understand. I wrote a piece this morning that I wrote it like a week ago, and I just published it this morning on, it's titled Boundaries, a Love Story. Literally about how having boundaries and go, this is in alignment with what we're talking about, with being in your vision, in your mission, that when you recognize what your purpose and your mission and your vision is, then you can say no to things that aren't in alignment with that. So then you're not just like, machine gunning energy everywhere. You're just like focused. It's like that laser focus that this is going to help me in this particular way, or this is going to serve humanity in this way. This is going to serve the divine in this way. This is going to, that, however that works for you, but it has to be in alignment. And that's where having a vision is so critical. And that's why having solid boundaries is super important, because without it, and I'm speaking from experience, because I have, like, having good boundaries is, not always been my story. Now I have really great boundaries, but I didn't before. And I understood as I loved myself more, and I saw myself as more of a divine, sacred being, that it was appropriate for me to say no to certain things that weren't serving me anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, Jeremy, thank you so much, Jeremy. Love this discussion, because it's something that we all touch. We touch it every single day, with every action, with every interaction, in the way that we live, in the way that we write, in the way that we speak. In fact, somebody included me on it was a message on Facebook, and it was a bunch of people on it, and they were looking for something that I once was a part of. I was passionate about it. It had to do with the victims group, but it's something is not part of my mission anymore. I have a different mission. It's a different vibration, and I had to make a decision. Am I going to be part of assisting in that, or am I going to stay to my mission? I had to make a decision. And I think that even though it might sound like, okay, my voice can be heard and I can, get my name written in the paper or whatnot, but is it aligned to my mission? It's right. Not. So I can't do it, because I have to call in. So the universe doesn't understand words. It understands vibrations, right? So it has no idea what you're saying, but what are you putting out there through your actions and through your thoughts? It is the culmination of all of it that presents to the universe and says, this is what I want. So if you're concerned constantly about, your finances, if that's what your concern is, and you want more finances because you have lack, and you're focused on the lack. You don't want lack. You don't want lack. You want to get more money. You've got to get a better career. You don't want lack. All the universe hears, because everything is put into lack. So, okay, here's more lack. So it's that way with relationships. You say you want a relationship, but you keep sleeping around. You keep doing, doing things that you shouldn't be doing to bring in what it wants. If you just want to sleep around, fine, go do that. But if you want the one and you want a sacred relationship, you can't do that, because otherwise you're going to get more people that are just going to want you for your hot body. That's it. So you have to align everything. It all has to be everything that we do. You are telling the universe what you want through everything you do. So what are you telling the universe?
Right. And when you understand yourself as a sacred being, and you understand that you have a sacred purpose and a sacred mission to fulfill on this earth, then it makes it easier to not do all that stuff. It's like, it's easier to say, no, that's not in alignment with who I am or where I'm going. It's not in alignment with where I want to be in my life. And so it's, especially in terms of relationship, just because you touched on that, it's like, because I don't do it much anymore. I did relationship coaching for quite a while. And that was one of the things that I always talked about. I was like, people spend so much time focusing on finding the one, looking for the one, doing all of that stuff. And I'm like, well, you got to start focusing on being the one to yourself.
Exactly.
Like when you're all within, when you feel comfortable and you're happy with your life. I was actually talking with a friend last week about this, and talking about not being partnered and not having a romantic partner. And I was like, but the thing of it is that, like, for me, it's not like a glaring gap in my life. It's not like I'm sitting here like pining after, it's like literally like, not that I don't have my moments. I mean, I'm human too. I have down days just like anybody else. But my point being that by and large, I'm like, I look at my life and I'm like, I like what I do. I get paid to do what I love. I'm surrounded by amazing people. My kids are awesome. I have a great, like I don't feel like I'm missing anything. I don't really feel like I'm lacking in any way. And so if or when that person comes along, it's like, great, you're like, dessert, but you're not the main course. You're just an added bonus.
Yeah. When I called in my twin flame, and I think he's higher than a twin flame, but we won't get into all of that. I had to bring the twin flame within me first. It took a 1.5 years of inner work. You have to become what it is you want. You have to be it.
Right. And if you're not ready, so it's like, I have a lot of people that will say, ask questions about this, and they're like, well, but I really want it. I really want this relationship. And I'm like, but are you ready for it? Like, are you truly ready? Is your house ready for it?
Yeah.
Like, do you have the space? Like, can you, if you're like, twin flame walked up and knocked on your door, which I don't know, does it happen? Actually, I know it does happen, because I know a woman, her twin flame will come up and knock on her door like randomly, and they'll like hang out, but whatever. That's just, that does happen. Right. But are you ready? Like, do you have, if they came up and they're like, hey, I'm here, like a surprise, are you ready for them? Is your house in a space where you'd be like, cool, I'm excited, come on in, there's room for you? Or is it like all cluttered and messy and you'd be embarrassed because they'd walk in and they'd see like a mess? So it's like literally about creating the conditions that you want to have manifest in your life before they're there. It's about feeling the way that you want to feel before it manifests. So it's like in my room, I have like a whole section in my closet that's empty. It's empty, and it's like, why is this closet empty? Because I'm creating space for someone to fill it, metaphorically. I don't know like what the divine has planned. I have a nightstand on the opposite side of the bed that I don't sleep on that's empty. It's like ready, so you can just drop your shit in there. It's good to go there. So my point being that we have to be very conscious and intentional about what we're creating and how we're creating our world on a day-to-day basis. We look at the future as if something that is off in the distance, but the reality is that we create our future by every single choice we make today.
Right.
So when you wake up in the morning, do you choose to meditate? Do you choose to say your affirmations? Do you choose to visualize and focus on the goodness and focus on love and really set your vibe to where you want it to be? Or do you just get up and go around in zombie mode in default mode?
Right.
Because if you want to shift your life, you have to consciously shift your thoughts, your actions, and your way of being. That to me is a sacred act.
It is.
Getting I go and meditate in front of my altar, that is a sacred act. It's not just about the fact that it makes me a better person and like better to be around. It's literally about creating space for the sacred to show up.
You know, I said to Bliss today, we were talking off air, and I said, you know what? I said, all I'm doing is opening doors so source can go through. That's all I'm doing. And that's what we do. And I was talking about this being a platform, but what are we doing in our lives? Are you opening, what doors are you opening so the universe can manifest in your life? And it's really that simple. It's not hard to figure out. You don't, sometimes we get so lost in our thought process and we go on down rabbit trails, but it's really about what doors are you opening? And what doors are you opening that shouldn't be opened because it's already filled with things and energy and people and love and whatever it may be. What doors are you opening so the universe can flow through?
Right. That's what one of my favorite quotes is by the mystic Rumi. I love Rumi.
I love
If you have anybody that's watching that hasn't read any of Rumi's stuff, read the poems and the stuff that Rumi wrote, because it's all like, if you read it, it reads like love poetry. It's almost like erotic. It's almost like it's you know, sensually and charged poetry. And you would read it and you'd think he's writing to his lover, but he's writing to God. He's writing to the divine. He's like, he had such an like this an ecstatic love experience with God that was so overwhelming and fulfilling that it just poured out of him in these just beautiful, prolific writings. And I love to read those writings because it reminds me that there is nothing that is like that we can create that experience within ourselves. And not only can we, but we ought to be able to do that. Like we ought not to be dependent on an outside source. Like you shouldn't have to go to a church to feel the presence of God. You shouldn't have to have a lover to feel connected with divinity. You shouldn't have to have $1 million in your bank account to feel abundance. The point is about creating those conditions within, and that's where the everyday sacredness comes in. It's about consciously cultivating those experiences in your everyday world so that it creates that space where there's like a vacuum. It's like the universe, you know, just loves to swoop in, and they're like, "Ooh, there's an empty space where I could bless it with the miracle." Like, whoosh, there you go. How's that? You know, and it's like that, but you have to create that space. I'm reminded of the book Eat, Pray, Love, where Liz Gilbert is talking about her struggle with meditation and how it was like, you know, this thing, and that I don't remember what his name was, but he called her groceries, that he's like, if you just like create the space, then whoosh, the universe will, you know, just rush right in. And then starts talking about her meditation experience, having that. And that's what we're talking about here with this everyday sacredness, is that, again, it's like cooking for your family can be a sacred act. It's like you're serving the divinity within the people in your world because you love them. And you serve yourself. You know, I'm sitting here drinking my healthy shake with spinach mixed in it, because it's healthy and because it fuels my body. It makes me feel good. Not because I posted a thing earlier this week on Instagram where I was like, I don't work out because I hate my body. I work out because I love it.
Right.
Because I want to take care of it. So I want to treat this temple that is housing my spirit well so that I can go the long haul if that's what I'm meant to do in this life. That is everyday sacredness. It's not all this ooey, like super woo-woo spiritual stuff. It's not necessarily about, you know, rubbing yourself with holy oils and like, you know, being in prayer for, you know, 17 hours a day. Although that could be part of it. It's more about consciously creating conditions in your life that invite the sacredness in the everyday.
I love it. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yes.
It's been a process, you know, to get to that space.
Yeah, because, you know, like Lori said, we're spiritual scientists and we're figuring it out for ourselves and we're sharing it with others because it does work. It does work. I promise you it does work. If it can work for me, if it can work for Lisa, believe me, it can work for you as well. And that's why we want to honor your sacredness by giving you tools to transform your life.
Right. And yeah, there is no, like, you don't have to be special. That's the thing, is that a lot of people think like, oh man, if I just was special and if I just had, that special sauce. And it's like, we all have that special sauce. We just have to, you have to tap into it.
Yeah, right.
And it's about learning how, like, I mentioned this in the last video that we did, that for me, a lot of my spirituality and as a youth, I found God a lot in the mountains here in Colorado. I would go on like hikes and just randomly, like, I'd, find a boulder and like lay in the sun and just like, just be with nature and with God. And then I got involved in church and I kind of lost that connection. But where I am now is just like finding God in everything, in the mundane. It's like, which I think is so powerful. That's the thing. It's like, it's so amazing to be able to do that. It's so amazing to go out for a walk, like to go walk my dogs. I had that experience earlier this week. I was out walking my dogs and I just saw, like, it just snowed. And so it was like cold on Saturday. And then, I'm walking my dogs and I see like tulips blossoming and like flowers starting to burst through the earth. And I just felt this like surge of joy and love, where I was like, oh my God, like what an amazing world that we live in, that one day it could be snowing and the next day there's flowers bursting through. And it reminds me of the fact that even after the winter, the spring always comes. And no matter where we are in our journey, if we can just be mindful of that and stay connected to source without having to be in a church or be in a specific environment, but recognize that we're one with God. And so God is always with us, and that we can turn internally to touch that divinity. It's like, once you get that, it's like,
right. It is. It's life changing.
Yeah. It really is. It's incredible. I'm trying to find the words to express that the feeling that comes up when you're like just being able to tap into the divinity wherever you are,
right,
and see the God in people. To be in a grocery line and to be able to to see the divinity in somebody and to be able to speak to that and to spread love and kindness instead of whatever else is happening in this world. Like, that to me is a revolutionary act. Being in a space of love, even in a dark world, is revolutionary.
It is. It is. And, and that goes back to God sees the strides that we make. He sees the light in the darkness. And that's how stars are seen, because of the darkness. So don't take away from the little strides you make. It's the little things that are really the big things. And you never know. That's how I take it. If I'm out and about, is enlightened. So when I go and I'm out and about, and if I can say a word of kindness, or I can smile at somebody, or to make a compliment, or whatever it may be, that still is changing. That's still changing people, because when one person rises, we all rise. When we're all in more alignment, it changes the higher consciousness that is trying to anchor in. So don't discount all those strides that you're making and everything that you're doing to radically change your life, but others as well.
It all starts within. That's the thing, is that you pour out of an empty cup. And so until you learn how to fill your own cup and find that fulfillment and that love and that source within, you can't give it out to others. It's just not possible. It's like, so I think we start out with this, or for me anyway, I'll speak for myself, started out with this dependence on the outside world, right? It was like I needed to have like a pastor to tell me what God was trying to say, or like a prophet to like speak a word, and I was like, oh yeah, and then I learned how to find that for myself, where it's like I no longer have to hear it from somebody else. It's always cool if you do. I love signs and synchronicities and confirmation, like that's off the chain. Like when you're starting to get in alignment when the synchronicities start flowing. It's like when you start the same song and you start seeing the same things, you're like, okay, I'm on the right path. Like, I get it. Like, I'm paying attention now. God is showing me the way. It's like, we're like, God, show me a sign. Like a neon sign drops down. It's like, this way.
Right.
When you ask and when you're open to it, that starts to happen.
Right.
Sometimes even when you're not open to it, I'm thinking about in terms of, this story has been coming up for me a lot lately with the story of Saul in the Bible. Saul was a bad dude, man. He was like going through, and like, this was Old Testament, or he was like killing Christians. He was just like, he was bad. He was all that. And he's riding on his donkey to Damascus, and God just like out of nowhere, boom, like hits him with like this, whatever, you know, I think he just opened the heavens and let him see. And Saul got knocked off his ass, literally got knocked off his ass. And he like on the ground, he lost his vision. He couldn't see things for 3 days. And it was a complete transformation. You know, and then he comes out and he's Paul. And although I wonder about Paul, like who named these people? Like, I don't know anybody in the Middle East named Paul, but whatever.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
But he came out of that experience completely transformed and became one of the greatest disciples in the Bible and wrote, I think, a third of the New Testament. So those experiences, sometimes that's being open or not being completely closed off to it. Sometimes if the universe wants to get your attention, they're going to, you know, God, the universe source is going to get your attention in some way. But it's all in the greater good. It's all about getting each of us to that space of higher level wisdom, more love, more abundance, being a greater force for good. Even the dark times, even the things that seem difficult are all about getting us on the right path.
Right.
Had that not happened, Saul would have continued to be Saul and not ever transformed into Paul. So sometimes when we feel like life is falling apart or like everything is just blowing up in our faces, it can feel really heavy and it can feel really dark and really like, what is God mad at me? Like, did I do something wrong? And God's like, no, man, I just want to get you, I want to get to the core of you and get you to, you know, help you to be the person that you're meant to be.
Right, exactly. It's always working for us. Always, always, always working for us. And sometimes when we go through some of the darkest moments, right on the other side of that is just beauty. And it is a huge change in everything. And that's when the blessings start flowing. So it's just like, you know, we hear a lot of times, you know, the seed has to crack open for the plant to grow. So to understand that and know on the other side of that darkness is hope. And even Saul's path to the divine was the divine itself. So, and he would not be to one's light is one's darkness. And so what he did, he killed Christians. He was a bad dude, just like you said, but look at the greatness he did. And he had to have the balance to be able to do his work.
Right. Right. I think about, like, people say this all the time. They're like, you know, they say that moms don't remember the pain of childbirth.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I do. I remember it.
You do? I don't.
I remember, like, I mean, I can almost like viscerally, like, I'm actually getting goosebumps right now just thinking about like the visceral, like, just agony of, and I didn't have any medication. Like, I didn't have an epidural or anything. I just did it natural because I'm crazy. But
I did it was too natural, so I know what you're talking about.
I mean, oh,
yeah.
It's is that I remember it. I remember it hurt a lot. It was not a pleasant experience, but it was worth it. The point is that it wasn't painful. It's not that I don't remember. It's not that, you know, that yeah, but the fact is that, like, the minute that, you know, that baby was out and like in my arms, I didn't care about the pain because the payoff was so worth it. I was like, oh, I would totally do that again because it was so freaking awesome. Like, yes, the last, like, you know, 8 weeks of pregnancy suck. Childbirth is not fun. Breastfeeding, that's difficult in the first few days. All of that stuff is hard, but it's so worth it. And I think that's what, as someone who's been on both sides of this, as someone who has been on the side of like, God must hate me because everything is like blowing up in my face, and now being on this side and seeing it, like, to anybody that's watching that is in that dark space, like, just keep going, just keep following the little sliver of light that you can see, because when you get through, you'll look back at this time and you'll be like, oh man, this time that I thought was like the worst, I thought it was going to kill me, has actually birthed me into a new, more divine way of being. And you don't want to change it.
Right. Right.
Which is crazy, right? You're like, I went through so much suffering and so much pain. And like Jeremy said, enlightened. And it's like, yeah, to get enlightened, but enlightenment is a destructive process because you have to tear down all the old paradigms. You have to tear down all the old crap, all the old things we call our personality, in order to let the who we truly are emerge. And I'll tell you what, it's not fun.
No, it's not.
It's not.
So worth it. Yep.
It's anguish. It sucks. It's like crawling through, you know, I don't even know. I'm being dramatic, but it really does feel that way. Like
it does.
It feels.
It's not, enlightenment isn't about rainbows and unicorns. Enlightenment is about some scary shit you got to deal with. It's not fun, but on the other side of it, it's worth it. But even when you get on the other side of it, there's more and more layers that you have to go through it again. It's that destruction process over and over and over again, and doing a trust fall into that process, knowing it's going to take you to where you were meant to be, back to whole.
Right. That's the point. I love that you said trust fall. That's a synchronicity, because I've been saying that a lot recently in the readings that I've been doing, is like encouraging people. You just got to like trust fall into the arms of the universe and know that the universe has your back. Like like, I don't believe in a vengeful God. I don't believe in a God that punishes people. I don't believe in a God like, you know, I don't believe in any of that. Now, I do believe in karma, which is reaping what we sow. You know, and that's, well, I mean, that's like a loose term for karma, but it's like what goes around comes around. And so I do believe in that. And sometimes if you sow not so great things, you're going to reap some not so great things, but let that be a lesson to you, right? It's like, okay, I learned from that. I'm moving forward. But I don't believe in a God that punishes people. And I believe in a loving, benevolent God who orchestrates, or I don't even say orchestrates, because we have so much free will, but who will take a situation that looks really bad and will use it to make it really good somehow. Right. Because they love you so much that they're gonna, because God loves you so much that he or she or it or they or whatever is not going to let that pain happen for no purpose. There's going to be a purpose that comes from it.
Right. And it's about beauty from ashes, sacred uprising, coming out of the darkness. That's very, the logo that Christopher did for us was very intentional. The peony is in coming out of the darkness. And so that's exactly the universe, the infinite, all that is, wants the very best, because he is having a human experience as you. And he wants the best. So he will take the ashes of our life and he will create incredible radical beauty from it.
If we let that process happen.
If we let it happen.
I was saying earlier that my favorite quote from Rumi is, our task is not to seek love, but merely to look within and find all the ways, all the barriers that we have to love.
Right.
I'm loosely paraphrasing. But that is what the sacred uprising, that's what everyday sacredness is about, is really looking within to those barriers and moving them aside, eradicating them lovingly, because those barriers, things come in. It's like, we don't want to necessarily like cut off our dark side or our shadow sides, or, you know, we don't want to shame the shit out of our pain experiences and the defense mechanisms that we've created, because those things were necessary. They were necessary for our survival. You know, at a certain point in our life, as a young person in particular who's experiencing trauma, who doesn't know how to source from within yet, we tend to create defense mechanisms, right? And those are barriers. Those are things that we erect to survive the circumstances that we're in. And then, as I said earlier, but then you get older and you have to recognize, like, okay, but I'm not 8 anymore. I'm not 12 anymore. I'm not the age that this particular trauma happened. Right. So I don't have to protect myself in the same way that I did when I was 8, because now I'm a grown woman.
Right.
I know how to take care of myself, and I know what I need to do. And so I know how to source from here now. And so I can shift that. And so it's not about, like, when I was working with my own healing process, it wasn't about like shoving these defense mechanisms away or being like, that's all bad. It was like literally making friends with it and being like, you actually might remember this because I was talking a lot about it, is like shadow dancing.
Yep.
Learning how to do that, really embracing that, and really coming to terms with, like, look, thank you for being here. Thank you, fear. Thank you for showing up and protecting me. And I appreciate all of the ways that you have served me in this life. And I'm releasing you with love, because I no longer need you. Like, I'm good now.
Right.
I'm good.
Right.
How to take care of me. I know how to take care of this. And so you just kind of lovingly send them on their way. And it's like they can stay. Like, I'm sure that I have all my defense mechanisms somewhere in my consciousness still. They're not completely eradicated, but they just no longer get to drive.
Right.
They're no longer in
Right.
the driver's seat of
That's
that.
amazing.
Goodness.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. Well, okay, so how can people get in? Why don't you share with people what you can do to assist and how they can get in contact with you?
Sure. Well, I do intuitive coaching. I do tarot readings, oracle card readings, which is freaking fun. I'm telling you, it's the best thing. I know that you're not a fan of the cards, but some of us have to hear from God through cards. Some of us get so, you know, we'll just take it as
I know.
some of us like Talon. Talon has her own unique set of gifts, which is really incredible. I have to just give a shout out to you and to Talon and to Laurie and all of the other healers in my world that I have on speed dial, and that we call each other and we help each other through our stuff. Like, I just, you know, thank you. I am so much gratitude for all of the unique gifts that each of you bring to the table. But so I do tarot card readings, oracle card readings, intuitive coaching, and you can find me here on Facebook. It's probably the easiest way. On Insta, you can find me, I think it's Dr. Lisa Vallejos. So probably if you want to connect, the best way is through Facebook. You can go to my website, which is www.lisavallejos.com. But that is geared more toward sacred activism, so you won't see as much of the tarot and spiritual work in that particular arena. So if you want to reach me, want a private reading, you can check that, contact with me here, and also follow me on YouTube, which is, I think my channel is just Dr. V.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. Well, here soon, when our website is up, you can just go to our website and then click on a link, and you can reach all of our teachers. But I'm so glad we had this discussion, because I think for me particularly, it was revolutionary. Even though it's truths that I already know, hearing it from somebody else is a wonderful, beautiful reminder for me. So thank you for that. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So on that note, that is all for today. Tomorrow we'll start at noon Pacific Standard Time with Christy, our astrologer, and she will be talking about breaking through Saturn, and I will continue my series of calling in the one tomorrow. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Lisa, love you, love you, love you, love you, and I'll talk to you on the other side. All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye, everybody.